So I was going to start this video talking about how growing up, tons of media would portray Brussels sprouts as this disgusting food that nobody enjoyed. It wasn't really part of my family's cuisine growing up, so I didn't actually have any perception of what Brussels sprouts actually tasted like. All I knew was that TV, books, and movies led me to think that Brussels sprouts were disgusting. So once I finally actually ate and cooked with Brussels sprouts, I found out they were delicious. And looking back, I have no idea where all this slander on Brussels sprouts was coming from. But I did a little bit more research on this topic, and apparently, Brussels sprouts have been genetically modified to just taste really good. The Brussels sprouts that I'm enjoying now as an adult are not the same Brussels sprouts that traumatized kids 30 years ago. So instead of complaining about how TV used to be wrong, just wanted to share this little interesting factoid. Anyways, we're playing Pokemon Auto Chess as always. A huge new patch is coming soon, and as excited as I am for all this new content that's coming our way, I'm definitely going to miss this current patch and meta. The game really hasn't ever felt more balanced than it is right now, at least since I've been playing. Oh, and I'm also doing a cheeky Charmander solo, round 2. It's pretty safe to do if you get a Charcoal or a Miracle Seed. It's nice to get a little extra gold at the expense of less options for your early game team. But for that reason, I decided to grab a super early Fossil Stone. That gives me a lot of potential flexibility moving forward. And as we speed through the rest of our early game and our first carousel, I decide to spend a little bit of money rolling down early just to get my team strong. And the shops have been giving me a lot of fire-light Pokemon. I evolved myself a Charmeleon, and I've also picked up an Eevee with a Fossil Stone in my reserve. I'm seeing the potential for an early fire-light team and then pivoting into field-light late game. So I decide to commit to a Firestone and evolve my Eevee into Flareon, who in this patch has light synergy. So we're working with some pretty strong early game evolutions, as well as fire and light synergy. That's going to be some extra burns, as well as some damage boosts for our Pokemon on a light spot. I decide to throw in a temporary Horsey on that light spot, as its ability can do lots of damage. And this pretty unconventional early fire-light team is enough to take down 3 evolved water Pokemon. We'll secure the first PvP win of this game, and we'll see how long we can keep this win streak going. And despite the rolls and leveling early, I'm able to sell off my bench and get back to 10 money. And for the first ad pick draft, I decide to just go by component and pick up a Mystic Water. If I do go field late game, I'm not too threatened by not to. That's pretty fun to say, not too frightened by not to. And since I can't hit level 20 this round, I dump 4 money into experience. Next round, I will level up, and my shop will be a level 5 shop. And I also decide to make a Soul Dew. That's going to work really well on our Horsey. The light spot's just going to let it shine through. And we'll take on a Baby 3 team, but it's also backed by a scary Pikachu with a Stardust. My opponent's goal here is to lose and try to get an egg with that Baby synergy, but also pick up a bit of gold using the amulet coin on that Pikachu. A little risky if Pikachu ends up winning the round for them, but well done by them, as my team hands that Pikachu 2 gold and a loss. But that's okay, I'm happy because I won the round. And my next shop has Magby, which is a 4th fire Pokemon. It's also very nice. At stage 6, it's a very strong Pokemon. And replacing our Horsey with that Magby will get us Fire 4 synergy. That's going to be even more burns and scaling attack damage. I'll also transfer the Soul Dew and throw in a temporary Nidoran to bolster my front line. And sitting at 19 money here, I'm really hoping to win this round, as it would not only continue my win streak, but also get me to my next interest bump at 20 money. I'm facing a grass team with Blue Nomicon combo, which normally would be very scary at this stage of the game. But my early evolutions and fire burns just completely shut down that grass healing. So that's going to be another win for this unconventional fire team. It's pretty uncommon to see fire teams of this nature in 1100 plus lobbies, so I'm very happy that it's working out for me. Now looking at this next round, in the shop there is a Mareep. I decide to replace my Nidoran with Mareep, and that's going to bring me to a Light 3 synergy. Light 3 is going to give our Magby some PP generation, which is going to be quite significant as it's powered up by that Soul Dew. This round we'll be taking on another fire team. This one looks quite scary with an attack speed enhanced backline Monferno, as well as an evolved and cloned Centiskorch. But thankfully, with Magby powered up by Light Synergy and the Soul Dew, it's able to make short work of our opponent's team before that Monferno scales up too fast. And we've got another ad pick draft. This time I'm keeping an eye on what other people are adding to the game, and I'm seeing the potential for an Amorphous late game. I do have a Firestone, which doesn't translate into a lot of late game teams, but Amorphous can definitely make use of it, especially with Slugma, who is Amorphous and Fire type. I decide to replace the Charmeleon with Slugma, which is probably a downgrade at this point, but regardless of what direction I take my team, Charmeleon's probably not going to be in that late game team. We'll continue along with this undefeated Fire Light team, this time taking on a Dark Ghost team, and once again, enhanced by the light and all the scaling stats, our Magby just does so much damage this early into the game, and with another win, we'll go completely undefeated in the early game. Now going into Gyarados and our unique carousel rounds, my priorities are Amorphous, Field, and Light, and unfortunately I can't really force Amorphous, and I also don't have 3 Field Pokemon yet, so I'll just go in with this team for now and see if I can nab one of those symbols. Honestly, in this current meta, I really don't care about what portal I get in turn 10. It seems to be very easy to pivot this meta, and also with some Fossil Stones you can really make anything work. Regardless, down goes Gyarados. In our unique portal carousel, there is a Field Amorphous portal that I would like to pick up, but unfortunately it's looking to be on the exact opposite side of my character. I'm fairly confident an Amorphous portal is going to get claimed before I can grab it, so I decided to just get this light portal in front of my face. And ultimately, I'm not too happy with my unique choices. I would have liked to see any Amorphous or Field Pokemon, or maybe even a Cosmog, but I'll just grab Rotom with the light synergy. I do have a pretty nice lead already, and I think I can make it work for sure. I'm thinking some kind of horizontal, electric, fire, light, field team still. I don't know. I will figure out as I go, but Rotom is pretty nice as it's a 3-range backline unit. That works quite well for a backline light spot. Its ability is a buff for its own attack stat, and usually it's a little too slow at buffing itself up, but hopefully with the light spot and eventually getting it some nice items, we'll be able to get it to snowball out of control. For now, we're going with Light 4 and Ghost 2 synergy. That's going to be a nice boost to our defense and a nice hindrance to our opponent's defense. Our first matchup in the mid game is against a normal wild team. They've done the level 6 roll down at Gyarados, so they have Wild 6 and a bunch of evolved wild Pokemon. This is a very scary round to face a wild team, so my team here just gets absolutely trounced. No chance at all for Rotom to scale up there, and that's finally going to be the end to our win streak. However, for our 4-cost ad pick, I'm very happy to get a Helioptile and a Magnet, pretty much exactly what I want to see. Electric Light alongside attack speed. If I didn't get this ad pick, it's not the end of the world, as Shinx is always still an option in the late game, but getting Helioptile here is definitely very nice and will make the mid game a lot easier. I'll sell off the Magby, dropping my Fire 4 synergy down to Fire 3, but in turn, I'm able to get Light 5 and Electric 3 synergy activated. Electric synergy allows my electric Pokemon to triple every 4th attack, which pairs very nicely with the blue orb that I equipped onto my Rotom, and Electric 5 synergy will give my Rotom some extra shields as well as resurrection. On paper, that sounds really nice, but as we move towards the late game, Rotom will pretty much be my last Pokemon standing, being in the back line. And it's a very squishy Pokemon, so if it gets taken down for the first time, it's not going to take much for it to get knocked out a second time. But it's obviously nothing to complain about, especially in the mid game. We can watch everything in action as our Electric Light team takes on this Amorphous Artificial team, and with the new enhancements, as long as with not fighting a Wild 6 team, our Rotom is able to scale up pretty quickly and wipe out our opponent's team alongside that Helioptile. We've got another item component carousel, and I'd love to get some more attack speed for Rotom. Black Glasses would also be great for a Wonder Box. Unfortunately, all of that gets taken away pretty quickly, so I'll have to settle for some attack damage. I decide to dip below 50 money and hit level 7 here, just so I can get Fire Synergy reactivated. Not the most significant upgrade, but if I am able to win this round that I would normally lose, it'll be worth it as I'll make up for the lost interest and also start a new win streak. Unfortunately, we're against another Hyper Roll team, and this one has a Lucky Egg Poliwrath, and at this stage of the game, it's going to be extremely hard to kill and able to one-shot Pokemon after Pokemon, and with some unlucky targeting, our Rotom gets one-shot by that Poliwrath, and as I've said before, if it's the last thing standing and it's taken out once, it's not going to take much for it to get taken out a second time. Some unlucky timing and a very scary Poliwrath gives my opponent the win this round. Alright, at this point in the game, level 7, we have no evolved Pokemon aside from Flareon. It's time to look for some small upgrades and stabilize a little bit before I continue along towards level 9. Nothing too significant this round, just replacing a temporary Chimchar with a temporary Magby. We're taking on a Water Dark team with a Wynot and a Love Disc. Pretty interesting using Love Disc to mess around with dark units, and even though it's not too strong here, this is the exact kind of experimentation I love to see, so props to this player for creativity. Up next is our PvE round against Mewtwo. Nothing too significant happens here, but I am thinking about maybe going for Electric 6 rather than Fire 4, at least for the late game with Rotom being our carry. I really want to get some magnets for attack speed for that Rotom, but unfortunately all I get is a Miracle Seed, and then no magnets for my 3 item component picks. But I do have some interesting choices here. Charcoal makes sense as that allows my Rotom to get a red orb, but alternatively, I could get the Fossil Stone and turn my Rotom into a fire Pokemon. Fire is not too strong this current patch, but pair it alongside electric and light synergy, as well as Rotom's scaling ability, I decide that I want to cook with fire. So here we go, we've got Fire Rotom powered by the light spot. We'll see how well it does taking on this grass team. Mid-game is when Grass Flora truly shines, but fortunately for us, our opponent doesn't have too much Flora bumps. A Blossom could absolutely decimate my team, but fortunately all we're facing is a Gloom. My opponent is able to take out my front line very quickly, but that's enough time for my Rotom to snowball out of control. Its attack damage is just constantly growing. After powering through a Paralysis and a Burn, it's able to one-shot every Pokemon on my opponent's backline, and it wins me the battle without losing its first life. Alright, next shop, look who it is. It's our boy Numel. It's a great frontline tank with some synergies that work well with our team. We now have Field 3 synergy active, and this gives me the idea of going for Fire 6 instead of Electric 6. It'll be much easier to achieve, and it translates to more attack damage on Rotom, so that's going to be our plan for now as we continue towards level 8. I'm still severely underdeveloped in terms of evolutions, but now we have a new game plan in mind. And just before the battle starts, I make a Cleanse tag on my Flareon, pretty much just for the extra shielding, keeping my Rotom safe longer. And here is a human fire fighting team. This team is super developed with a ton of evolutions. That backline Infernape has the potential to be super scary, but once again, they don't have Fire 4 synergy activated yet. That's going to be a lot less damage scaling on that Infernape. The Infernape almost takes me down with Death by 1,000 Cuts, but this time, the Light 5 Resurrection is exactly what we need, as the fully healed Rotom takes down the Infernape's remaining HP with a single auto attack. Alright, next item carousel, I see 2 magnets here, and I would really love to pick up one. One of them gets claimed, and then the Dragapult player goes for the second, but thankfully, I'm able to grab it before them. This round, I also decide to hit level 8, dipping below 50 money, but this is a pretty significant upgrade as I'm able to hit Fire 6 synergy. It's most significant for my Rotom, whose attack damage is going to scale up even quicker. And here we go, we're taking on a Dark Field team with a Dark Enhanced Heatmore. My opponent's team does so much damage and evaporates my front line. Once again, it comes down to the Light Enhanced Rotom, who's gotten a lot of attacks and ability casts off, and even though it loses its first life, once again, it's able to win the final duels. Another close round, but you love to see that kind of win. The damage chart is telling a pretty funny story, especially considering Rotom pretty much did a quarter of its damage with its last 2 attacks. Alright, now that we're level 8, it's really time to start looking for some evolutions in our late game Pokemon. We're almost in the late game, and the only Pokemon I've evolved is this Flareon, so it's time to start spending our money on rolling. Even though we're in first place, we're going to lose tempo really quickly, especially if we don't find any evolutions. But despite my best efforts, even rolling below 50 money, I'm not able to find a single evolution still. Alright, let's take on that wild team that we previously lost to. And despite the wild team spiking at level 6, their team is still doing way too much damage for me to handle. Their team is also extremely agile, enhanced by Dark Synergy. I can't survive this onslaught, so I'll be losing this round to them. Alright, we've got Lugia and Ho-Oh coming up, and I can't resist just doing a few rolls. Unfortunately, and once again, no luck with evolutions. So let's skip forward, take down the Tower Duo, and I'm very happy to find myself a Magnet. I can make an X-Ray Vision for my Rotom, which means my other item is going to be a Shiny Charm, and with the next shop refresh, I'm very happy to find myself a Shinx. And for our legendary portal carousel, honestly, I don't really know what I want, so I'll just go with the light symbol if I can. Replacing one of our weak, unevolved Pokemon with a legendary is definitely going to be an upgrade. I would also love to see a Ho-Oh as it has fire and light synergy. But our legendary choice is between Victini and Necrozma. They're both pretty good frontline Pokemon, but my personal preference is Necrozma, whose ability can scatter my opponent's Pokemon. Now, how do I fit these new Pokemon into my team? Shinx can very easily replace Mareep. They have the same synergies, and Shinx is a very strong late game Pokemon, whereas Mareep is really just a synergy filler. Unfortunately, Necrozma is going to have to fit in by removing my Fire 6 synergy. If I was smart, I would sell my Flareon, because I would be able to maintain Fire 6 synergy, and I'd still have Light 5. Currently, I have Light 6, which doesn't provide me with anything more than Light 5 does. However, as I roll through the shop, I pick up a Ghastly, which gives me another idea. If I replace my Litwick with Ghastly, I will retain Ghost 2 synergy. I'll fully accept going to Fire 4 synergy moving forward, But this also makes me a single Amorphous Pokemon away from Amorphous 3 synergy. I still have enough health and money to make a push for level 9, and there are a ton of Amorphous ads in this game, and even if there wasn't, Solosis would be perfect for me, as that not only gives me Amorphous 3 synergy, but also Psychic 2 synergy. A small recording glitch here, sorry about that. But in this fight, we're against an artificial Amorphous team. My Necrozma is doing a lot of great work tanking and disrupting my opponent's Pokemon. This ultimately allows my Rotom to scale up, and once again, Rotom cleans up. I gotta say, throughout this game, I'm a huge fan of this Rotom. Once it gets heated up, these fights become an absolute wash. It's able to mow through our opponent's Pokemon one by one. And, Frost. Anyways, we'll rearrange our team. We're continuing to push towards level 9. Here's that water team with the Lucky Egg Poliwrath. This time things are going to be a little bit different with our Necrozma in the front line. With the perfect ability cast, it's able to absolutely scatter my opponent's Pokemon. Gives our Rotom a lot of time to continue to scale up. Gastly's also putting in a lot of work, putting fatigue on all of our opponent's Pokemon. Ultimately, it comes down to Manaphy versus Rotom, 2 scaling Pokemon. Helioptile buys just enough time for that Rotom to attack twice, just barely winning me the round. Alright, next carousel. I'm really tempted to grab some of these synergy stones, but I'm not really seeing how I can get my synergy levels up, and I think Amorphous 3 is truly the best thing I could do for my team at level 9. So I grabbed myself a Stardust to hopefully make my Necrozma last a little longer. We're getting really close to level 9 here, but we'll continue to hold as we're still in first place. We'll take on this Dark Fire Field team, and once again, the Dark team is able to do so much burst damage. They have a fully evolved Tyranitar, which is very scary. Once my Rotom gets taken down fairly quickly, I'm expecting a loss, but never tell Rotom the odds. It takes down the Litten, and then the Dusknoir. The Litten, and then the Dusknoir. Now it's just the Galarian Moltres, unique versus legendary, and it's our Rotom with a triple attack that comes out on top. With that win, we're really close to level 9, and we've maintained our income. Every fight has been very close, but we're still in first place. We'll take on this grass team with a huge Snorlax and a clone Swadloon. They also have a Kartana, which just absolutely decimated my front line. Really out of nowhere, this grass team is suddenly the biggest threat to win this game. This really shows that my lack of evolutions is really starting to hurt. We're about to hit round 24, and still, the only evolution we have is Flareon. That is truly stupid, and enough is enough. I make a small blunder with my money at this non-player round, going below 50 money when I didn't mean to, so I just say screw it, let's get to level 9. We'll take down the legendary birds, and I decide to pick up a Choice Specs as my reward. I'm level 9 now, all I can spend my money on is rolling, and finally, I'm able to evolve my boy, Numel. It's not as cute anymore, but congratulations, you are now a Camerupt. I'll pick up my third Amorphous Pokemon, because why not? A bunch of team-wide attack speed and health bumps is always welcome. As for my Choice Specs, I'd love to eventually put that on a Solosis. And even though I'm only one Helioptile away from evolving myself a Heliolisk, Heliolisk is not going to win me the game. I'd much rather repurpose its Soldew onto my eventual Solosis. So my current Helioptile is a temporary Pokemon. I already have the benched Helioptile for a replacement, for when I do eventually find that Solosis and make that item transition. For now, let's take down this fire fighting team. Once again, Necrozma doing a ton of work before passing the torch onto our Rotom, who cleans up our opponent's team. And here we go, a second Ghastly. And after one more roll, we found ourselves a Solosis. Say goodbye to our temporary Wynot, and as I scout my opponents and then stare at my team blankly, I completely forget to sell off my Helioptile and move those items over to Solosis. But that's fine, here's the water team. A fantastic ability cast comes out from my Necrozma, but the rest of my team gets taken out fairly quickly. This opponent has gotten a lot of damage upgrades. Unfortunately, my Rotom is just not doing quite enough damage. As we continue through the late game, its damage is really starting to fall off, at least compared to the other late game monstrosities that we're starting to face. And we'll take another loss here, and things are starting to look not so great. However, in the next item carousel, I'm finally able to find myself a Ditto from the shop. For the item carousel, I decided to just grab a Lucky Egg. I really value the stats that it's able to provide. Then I pick up a second Solosis from the shop, and with the shops finally starting to go my way, it doesn't take long for me to find myself a Duosion. After a few more rolls, I find myself a second Shinx, and as my money starts to dwindle down to 0, there is my Haunter. I also use a Ditto to evolve my Shinx into Luxio. Let's finally make that item transfer for our Duosion, and the Lucky Egg is going to go on my Necrozma, and wow, I feel like my team just tripled in strength. But there's no way of knowing it until we see it in action. So let's see what happens when we take on this scary grass team. Our front line still gets taken down fairly quickly, but our Duosion has something to say about that. There's 800 damage in a single ability cast. Who needs to scale up when you got a Choice Specs and Psychic Synergy? Another ability cast does another 200 damage. Luxio is also doing some good contributions. And of course there's Haunter providing a lot of support. Just as our Rotom Superstar is starting to show its age, the rookie Duosion steps in and is ready to lead the team. Alright, PvE round, we'll take down the legendary beasts, and we're given a pretty poor selection of items. Waterstone is pretty much useless to me, and Flame Orb, I don't really want to burn myself. So, I grabbed the Dawnstone. With Psychic Synergy active, it's pretty much just a worse Choice Specs, but it's not useless and pretty nice for our Luxio who does a lot of special damage with its ability. Let's continue along against this fighting fire team. My opponent's team is bunched up together, which is perfect for my Duosion. It pretty much one-shots 5 Pokemon with a single ability cast, and the rest of my team is able to pick up the scraps. Alright, here is potentially the final matchup of the game. My opponent's not doing too much repositioning, which is great because I want that Duosion to hit as many things as it can. My opponent does get a pretty nice surround on my team and takes down my Luxio pretty quickly, but a huge swing in my favor as the Duosion's able to get its ability off. Necrozma also putting in a ton of work, and as always, the longer the fight goes on, the more Rotom is able to scale up. Our opponent's Kartana was able to dodge a lot of Duosion's abilities, but ultimately, Rotom is super powered up and with a triple attack is able to take down that Kartana. Unfortunately, my opponent hangs on with 1 HP, so this round we'll spend all of our money down to 0 to hopefully seal the deal. Using a Ditto, I'm able to evolve my Slugma into Magcargo, and I also decide that with our Duosion being our main damage dealer, why not give it the light spot for the last fight? I'm mostly after that PP generation, as getting more ability cast is super nice. And here we go. Unfortunately, our opponent's Cacturn is able to take the first ability cast, but because of Light Synergy, it doesn't take long for that Duosion to get a second cast. Unfortunately, it is now exposed as it gets taken down by our opponent's Pokemon. This fight's definitely not going my way, but that's okay, we still have Light Resurrection, and our Rotom is definitely starting to scale up. A lot closer than it should have been, but in the end, we're able to win. And that's the game. How cool is that? Like, no evolutions until very late into the game, and Light being our dominant synergy throughout the entire game. I don't think I've ever played a game in a high elo lobby like this before. But with that, thank you so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next game.